All right. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to everybody who is getting joined in. I started the call here about 10 seconds early just to give everybody a chance to actually hit that join webinar link and get into the call. We know there's sometimes a little bit of a delay before we actually see people get into the call here. So we don't want you to miss anything. So we just kind of fill the space here at the beginning by saying exactly what I just said. So again, welcome everybody. And let me just start by saying thank you all for spending some time with us today. I say it every time, but we can't thank you enough for taking time away from all the tasks that you already have to deal with to spend a little bit of time with us. So thank you for that. And obviously, as you can see on the screen today, we're going to be talking about compressors, kits, and related components. If you remember last month, we talked about the oil filter housings for the 3.6 liter Pentastar motors, right? So that was more of an engine management related call. And most of our calls are engine management related, but we're in that season now. It's AC selling season. It is time to go out there and ramp up those AC sales. So that's our conversation piece today. So what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of a quick overview of the primary AC system components. We're going to talk about that. We're going to put them together and show you how they work together. Again, very high level view of this. We're not going to get too far into the weeds, but just so you understand how it works and what's at play here. And then we're going to talk about our readiness, which in turn means your readiness for AC selling season this year. All right, so with that, let's talk about the key AC system components that are going to be topics of conversation throughout this season. And that is, of course, what you see on the screen here. So there's, quite a few more things. We have some sensors and we have some transducers and some switching things here and that kind of stuff. But primarily, we have the common and the core components here listed on the screen. And so we'll quickly go through them. If we start on the left-hand side here, what we're going to see is we're going to have our compressor and our expansion device. And the compressor obviously is on top and the expansion device on the bottom. Now, with the expansion device, that could be either a TXV system or an orifice tube system. And I'll show you, it's not a very big difference. Here in just a second, they both work the same. They do the same thing, just in a little bit of a different way. Now, with the compressor and the expansion device, we can basically categorize these as our pressure changers. So this is where the compressor itself is going to increase the pressure of the refrigerant, and it's then going to force it through the system at the condenser. It's going to start at the condenser, force it through the condenser, right? And then the condenser is going to work its way over to the receiver dryer. So that's what we're doing. We're compressing and we're changing the pressure through the compressor. Then in the middle here, we have what's considered our temperature changers, right? Our state changers. And that's going to be our condenser and our evaporator core. And we know the condenser is going to be mounted near the front, under the hood, towards the front of the vehicle to help release that heat with that cool air coming across it, along with the fan clutch and the fan. Then we have the evaporator core that's mounted inside the cabin of the vehicle, which is going to absorb heat and remove the heat from the cabin of the vehicle. So as we're telling the temperature, gauge there what we want it to be, that's how we're getting those comfortable cabin temperatures. We're evaporating that and we're going to send it back through the system. And then over on the right-hand side, we've got our communicators or passageways. Or the easiest way to look at this is the transportation system of the oil and refrigerant. This is how things get carried from one component to the other. And that is our receiver dryer or our accumulator there on the top. And then we can't forget about hose assemblies. And past years, we didn't talk about hose assemblies as much, but we really don't have a choice anymore. And you're going to see with the SKU counts changing the way they have, how serious that is. But with hose assemblies, we have so many now, especially with orifice tube systems where we have a captured orifice tube, meaning if the orifice tube is clogged, we have to replace the line. Or we have lines like you see here on this hose assembly that have mufflers that if debris gets in the system, it cannot be flushed out, so they have to be replaced. So hose assemblies have quickly become a much more commonly, high demand AC system component as opposed to the way it used to be in the past. Where they really didn't get replaced unless they were just destroyed, right? So those are our main AC system components. That's what we're going to be talking about primarily throughout the AC selling season. So let's, again, put it together and see how it works. Well, again, remember I said we have our pressure changers, our compressor, and our expansion device. Well, this is the TXV system. This is how a TXV system would work, right? So we have our compressor that's going to be commanded by our PCM, right? And the PCM is going to be commanding the compressor based on the driver's input, what they're asking the temperature to be, based on what they're getting information from the temp sensor being, and how well the system is performing. The PCM will command the compressor based on all those different things going on at one time. And then that compressor is going to then pressurize the refrigerant into a gas form, and it's going to force it through to the condenser. And then the condenser is going to do exactly as its name implies. It's going to condense, and it's going to remove the heat from the system here. And then that's going to change it from a gas to a liquid state. And then that's then going to be forced up through the receiver dryer. And then that high pressure liquid refrigerant that's forced up there is going to go up towards the expansion valve. And that's the TXV on this particular system. And that TXV valve is then going to meter or reduce and drop the pressure of that refrigerant. And so now we have a low pressure amount of refrigerant that's going to work its way into the evaporator core. And then the evaporator core, again, once, it's going to do is exactly as its name states. It's going to draw the warm cabin air across, and it's going to then cause that refrigerant to boil and evaporate. And it's going to just basically remove that heat from the cabin, giving us that comfortable cabin temperature that we want, and force it back to the compressor to do the cycle all over again. So again, basically everything I just showed you on the last screen, minus the PCM, is right here doing what it's supposed to be doing. Minus the hose assemblies, but you see the hose assemblies there connected to everything. So that's really our system. It seems like AC can be a lot more complicated than what it really is, because it really is just a handful of components with one goal in mind, and that's removing heat. Now, again, that's the TXV system. It's the exact same on an orifice tube system, just a couple different components. Now, if we look here, it's similar, but instead, we've got the PCM still commanding the compressor, but it's going to go to the condenser like it does in a TXV system. The condenser is just going to condense it like it's supposed to, turn it back into a liquid, form, and remove the heat from it. And then it's going to send it over through the orifice tube. Now, with orifice tubes, again, this is the TXV system of this type of system. It's an orifice tube. Orifice tubes are screens, and some of them are captured. What I mean by captured is on those hose assemblies, sometimes the orifice tube is in line with the hose assembly, and the only way to get it out would be to cut the hose assembly in half, which means it's not serviceable. So with some orifice tubes, we have to replace the hose assembly with it as well. But nevertheless, the system runs the same. It's going to send it up through the orifice tube where it's going to get metered and drop that pressure. Then it's going to send it up through the evaporator. Now, when I say metered and drop the pressure, whether it's a TXV or orifice tube system, what we're saying there, when we're saying we're metering or dropping the pressure, think of it kind of like putting your thumb over the end of a garden hose. It's just restricting the path and changing the pressure up a little bit. So we go from high to low, from gas to liquid, and it just continues going in that cycle to remove all that heat. So that's how those systems work. And we bring that up to basically narrate this, because in 2 slides, you're going to see the point I'm going to make here, which is if we look, everything on the slide that you see here, minus the evaporator, needs to be replaced when a compressor is replaced, because condensers cannot be flushed anymore. Orifice tubes, generally speaking, will have debris in them whenever you go to replace a compressor, because compressors don't just stop working. They usually fail and send debris through the system. The accumulator you have to replace. Sometimes the lines you have to replace. The only thing on the screen here that's technically flushable is the evaporator. And that's why when you look at kits and when you look at warranties on AC jobs, the evaporator is not usually included as part of the kit or as part of the warranty requirement, because it usually can be flushed, but everything else has to be clear. And that's where we get into the conversation of the condensers and how ready we are for the AC selling season this year. And that is, we are very, very ready. The thing we have to remember is the vast majority of condensers that are on the road today that are going to need to be replaced cannot be flushed. Really, anything after 2000, 2001, you need to replace it. Those fins are so thin and so narrow that any debris whatsoever is going to clog them up. But now you will get arguments from technicians that say, well, hey, I put the flush in and I see the flush come out, so it must be doing its job, right? Well, yeah, it's flushing the channels that are clear, but it can't flush the channels that are clogged. So what you end up with is the flush finding its way through all the clear channels. And then at the bottom of the condenser, you get about a third to a half of the bottom of the actual condenser itself completely clogged. And now you've got a new AC system with a condenser that cannot cool it properly, meaning we're going to be, not having a very efficient AC system. So when it comes to this AC selling season, we're very ready. We've got the condenser stacked up as high as you can want to find them. And, we're ready for the customer on those. So we need to be promoting those to the customer, because the key to a successful compressor replacement, we're always going to remind everybody this, is that every inch of the refrigerant path should be new or flushed. So again, if you want to flush the evaporator, go for it, but replace the condenser, right? If the orifice tube can be replaced without the hose, go ahead. But if it's captured, replace the hose. We just need to make sure that when we do a complete AC job, everything is either new or flushed, so that that refrigerant and that oil can effectively pass through all those channels to do their jobs and not have debris getting clogged up and sooted up in the system, basically keeping those paths tight and making it to where the refrigerant oil cannot do its job. So we have to make sure it's new or flushed. We also need to make sure it's charged with the exact amount of refrigerant. And then also, just as important, that it has the correct type, viscosity, and amount of oil in it before they start it up for the first time. And then proper airflow is a big one. We can't forget, we're talking about AC components here, but fan clutches and fan assemblies are a big deal. You can put a whole new fan or a whole new AC system together, do it all the right way, but it's not going to be effective if the fan's not coming on. So we have to make sure we're getting proper airflow as well. So we are ready for them on the condenser front. Now, again, what those components look like and really what is needed for a complete AC repair. So let's look at how ready we are with everything else for this AC selling season. Kits are obviously the topic of conversation with everybody at this point, and there's no getting around it. It is one of the smartest ways to deal with AC repairs and order AC, replacement parts. And this is 20 years in the making here. So, starting back in 2005, when it was really more of a hypothetical, more of a virtual analysis that we were doing. But it didn't take long after that. In 2007, Napa yourselves actually were the first major player to go to the market with a true virtual kit program where you offered a discount for all the components being sold. Now, there wasn't a catalog for the kit. You just kind of basketed it all together. I'm sure plenty of you remember that. And it discounted at the register. As soon as you went to go check out, it discounted it and gave you a better deal, and you got your warranty. Well, that was so popular that people didn't want to have to basket anymore. They just wanted a box. They wanted a part number. So in 2015, we introduced 50 kits that came with everything the technician could possibly need minus the condenser, right? So we didn't put the evaporator in there because it can be flushed. But what did come in the kit was the compressor, the orifice tube or the TXV valve, depending on which situation it was, the accumulator or the receiver dryer, depending on which type it was, the correct oil, new caps, Schrader valves, O-rings, even a lockout tab so that the technician would know if somebody messed with it after they did the job. It had everything that they could possibly need, even the flush in the kit. And so that got super popular in 2015 to the point where just 4 years later, from 2015 to 2019, we went from having 50 part numbers of kits to over 300. And just so you know, that number is over 900 today. We have over 900 part numbers for full kits. Now, the only problem with kits, as great as they are, is there is a lot of redundancy in inventory. So imagine you have a store with compressor part number 1, 2, 3 on the shelf, and you have a reman and a new option, but then you have a full prepackaged kit. Well, now you have 3 of the same compressor on the shelf. We also had, some shops that say, hey, I only want the prepackaged kit because it comes with a new compressor or a reman compressor, whichever one it was, because that's what I offer my customers. But then we also had customers that said, hey, I want a reman and this only comes with a new, or I want a new and this only comes with a reman. So in that situation, we thought, well, what about a service kit? So in 2020, that's when the service kits were introduced. And with those, we now have over 500 service kits, and those have just taken off like crazy because now the shop has the option of ordering the prepackaged kit that has everything they need, because if that's what they want, that's what they get. Or let's say it's a shop that's maybe trying to make it a little bit more advantageous for their customer to approve the job. They can give them 2 options. Now they can give them a price of the full service kit and a reman compressor, or the service kit and a new compressor. And so since 2020, We have bumped these up from just a handful of kits to, again, well over 500 kits now. That's reducing inventory and giving your customers more options. So they can do a prepackaged kit with everything, or they can pair a new or a reman compressor with the Pro kit. And that's the nice thing about it. They pair the Pro kit with it, whichever one they want, but they still get everything they need had they gotten the pre-packaged, the cap and valve kit, expansion device, whichever one. There's no duplication of inventory, and it actually increases sales opportunities. We actually did a bunch of surveys with shops, and 45% of shops that we surveyed that do AC repair said when they do AC repair, they only use a service kit or a full kit when doing their AC repair. So that tells me if 45% are saying that, there's at least another 30% out there that just don't know these kits exist. And as soon as we tell them about it, they're going to be definitely wanting to get on board with it. So you have those kits available for you now. So we are definitely ready for your customers on kits as well as reman and new compressors. We're also very ready for them this year and new for 2025 for Napa on the complete boxed AC kits. Remember, we have over 900 of these kits available now. And please don't hesitate to get with your local rep on some of these brochures you see on the bottom right-hand side here. We do have some new flyers and new brochures available on some of this AC stuff. So, make sure you either download it, order it, or get it ordered for you, because it'll be some good information for the shops to be left with whenever we have a conversation. But again, when it comes to AC readiness this year, we're ready. We've got the kits, we've got the service kits, we've got the condensers, and you all are ahead of the curve here, because if you look at yourselves versus the competition, you've got a version of all of the kits, whether it's special order through the virtual side, a complete kit, or a Pro kit. We've got a lot of competition out there that's not messing with kits the way that Napa is now. So you have a huge advantage when it comes to these kits whenever we're out there talking to the shops. So now, not just kits, we don't want to forget our hybrid and electric vehicle customers out there. So if we have a shop that we know does a lot of work on hybrid and electric, we need to make sure they know we're ready for them too this AC season, with over 2,000 different components, ranging over 34 different product categories, covering over 255 million vehicle application opportunities. And that's everything ranging from new and reman compressors to kits, to specific oils, all the way up to battery cooling fan motors and cooling pumps. So we are ready for our hybrid and electric vehicle shops as well. Same thing with our shops that see a lot more of the electric compressors coming through. Have 22 new SKUs on those, covering 5 million vehicles in operation. We're adding 10 new SKUs throughout this year. And again, there's a new brochure available on those as well. So the point we're trying to make here is whether it's a condenser, whether it's a kit, a complete kit, hybrid and electric compressors, we are ready for your customers this year, which means you are ready for your customers this year. And now we have to get back on the conversation of hose assemblies real quick, because this is something we had to get even more ready for. Because I showed you in the beginning there, we have a lot that have captured orifice tubes. We have a lot that have the mufflers. The amount of hose assemblies that have to be replaced now when an AC compressor job is being done is far more than we've ever seen in the past. And it's because of the advancements in those technologies. And so as a basic manufacturer of hose assemblies, we have a lot of wonderful capabilities to provide quality units that have that experienced engineering behind it, precision machining. And not only that, we have custom tooling to ensure that each component of these hose assemblies meets or exceeds the OE fit form and function. It has to minimum exceed the OE fit form and function. And here's why. Again, some of these have captured orifice tubes, some of them have mufflers, but a lot of them have now very intricate bends and turns and twists. And those have to be done methodically so that when they go to your store and they get sent to a customer, that customer can slide it right where it goes and it fits. We do this to an extent as far as product testing to an umpteenth degree. We actually have vehicles here at our testing facility in Irving, and when a new hose assembly is brought to the lineup, it's actually sent here first, where we test fit it and also test drive with it. But we test fit it to make sure it slides right in the way it's supposed to. And the reason for that is the amount of hose assemblies you're going to be selling today versus the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's at least double, right? It might be even triple in some cases, depending on what types of vehicles are being serviced. And so we have to make sure we have not only the coverage, but the right hose for those customers when they come in. So all of ours are correct. They're obviously rated for both 1234 YF and 134A refrigerant, and they're all double wall barrier hoses. So your hose assemblies, we've got your customers covered. But just to give you an idea of what that coverage looks like, just in the last 4 years, we've added over 1,200 SKUs, and we're adding another 300 this actually by the end of Q2, not just this year, by the end of Q2, and another 250 to 400 hoses a year for the next several years to keep up with the demand that's coming now. And we are at 94% coverage on hoses, everybody. That means car, light truck, heavy duty, and hybrid. If a vehicle comes in and it needs an AC compressor job done on it and it needs a hose, 94% of the time, you're going to be able to say, yeah, I got that hose, and we are ready to rock and roll. Now, we started this investment in the hoses back in 2020 just because we saw a lack. We saw where we had, coverage in one area, but not in another when it came to the hoses. So we wanted to match those coverages up. And again, now we're at 94%, and it doesn't look like we're going anywhere near, anything lower than that, because we're just adding more and more and more. So we're ready for your customers on hoses as well. We also got them covered on assortment kits. And, you got a lot of customers out there that are doing a lot of AC work. These things come in really handy. And the nice thing is the trays that go inside the boxes, they're all the same. So they don't have to have 5-10 different types of box sets, laying around everywhere. They can actually interchange these. But we do have the YF service parts assortment kit. There's a supplemental tray for that YF assortment kit. There's also a regular assortment kit for 134A that has some YF stuff in there along with it. We also have a new heavy duty service parts kit, and also a new YF cap and valve assortment kit, that part number 407-800 there. So again, regardless of whether it's the components they need or the ancillary little pieces like this, we're ready for your customers this year. We even got them covered on the tooling, and we have beefed up inventory on some of these because last year we pretty much ran out, went on back order on both of the top two there, the ECV diagnostic tool and the dual refrigerant sight glass tool. And the reason that those are so high demand is because of what they do. So when you have a shop that does a lot of AC repair, they're inevitably going to see a lot of ECV compressors. Well, the nice thing about that ECV diagnostic tool 419635 is that they don't have to tear anything apart. They don't have to get too crazy deep into a diagnostic with an ECV compressor if they have that tool, because they can hook up to it and they can actually command the compressor manually and actually see if there is a issue right away without having to go too deep into a diagnostic. So that's actually kind of nice. They can verify a good compressor. They can also diagnose a bad one pretty quickly with that tool. Same thing with the dual refrigerant sight glass tool. Now, if we have a shop that's working on a vehicle that, we're pretty sure there's some type of failure and there might be debris in the system, but, we don't have the permission yet from the customer to tear it apart and find out, you can actually hook up that dual refrigerant sight glass tool, run the AC, and the refrigerant and the oil will go through that sight glass, and there's a filter in there, and you can actually catch some of that debris in that medium that's coming through and show just how nasty and murky that, oil and refrigerant is to the customer and say, this is why your AC is not working. This is what's going through it. And so that'll help a shop get an approval on a repair, but also on the reverse side of that, if a technician just wants to validate his repair after the fact, they can just hook it up and then run the AC and watch and make sure that the oil and refrigerant is coming through clear the way that it's supposed to. So again, we're ready for them on all fronts, whether it's assortment kits, condensers, hoses, AC kits, our tools, or even just the oils. We've got the right oils, the right types, the right viscosities to cover not just ICE engines, but hybrid electric vehicles as well, and those using 1234YF and 134A. But now I keep saying we're ready for your customers. We have all these things. We have the hoses, we have the condensers, we have the kits. I say that we're not necessarily ready for your customers. You are. You're ready for your customer because we're ready for you. We're making sure we're getting everything to your DCs to be ready for the AC selling season. So we've already got an exceptional 92% fill average, actually over 92%, over 93% on on-time deliveries, 94% on preseason order excellence, and that's going to get even better even going into Q4 and into next year when we make our move to our new 575,000 square foot facility. That's actually going to reduce delivery times up to 2 days to some of the West Coast customers out there. So I say we're ready for the AC selling season. We are. We're ready for you. And we're making sure that we have everything to you so that you can be ready for your customer. And so far, that's looking great this year in this AC selling season. Now, before we wrap up, I don't want to forget one major category that goes along with AC selling season. I mean, when I talked about fan clutches and fan assemblies, again, you can do an entire AC system, do it all the right way. But if we don't have any air coming across that condenser, it's not going to help, right? Well, it's the same thing on the inside of the cabin. We can put a whole new AC system together, but if we don't have the air coming out of the vents, it's not going to get us cool. And so with the amount of vehicles with air door actuators on them now, and not just vehicles with one on there, vehicles with two on there, three on there, four on there, some European vehicles with 7 actuators behind that dash. So just like with the hoses, you see from 2020 to 2025 here, we've over doubled the number of SKU count that we have on actuators to account for the amount of opportunities that are on the road today. What does that mean? Well, let's think about it this way. There's 242 million vehicles in operation that we cover right now with those 632 SKUs. But you have to understand those 242 million vehicles in operation have at least 2 of these doors. Some have 3 and 4. So you got to multiply that 242 million by the amount of average air door actuators. And you can see there's a lot of opportunity there. So make sure we're not forgetting when we're talking about AC, we're bringing up the air door actuators to our customers as well as fan clutches, as well as fan assemblies. And before I go here, I want to just make sure to remind you, we have some great new printed materials and sales support materials that have come out. I'm not sure exactly how you would order it at your store, but if you can order at store level, I would suggest and really highly encourage that you do. If you need to get a hold of your rep, please do. They can get those ordered for you as well. If you're out in the field and maybe you have a tablet or something like that, a lot of this you can download and show to your technicians and your shop owners while you're actually in their facility. But yeah, don't sleep on the new sales support material. There's a lot of really good content out there for us to go out and talk about. And so with that, I promised everybody I would keep it under 30 minutes. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. The deal here today, everybody, is hype, right? It's AC selling season. Let's get hyped up about AC selling season. You have literally everything at your disposal that you could possibly need. And again, we're shipping this stuff out as fast as we can, making sure your DCs are ready so that you can be ready for your customers. So please do not hesitate to get a hold of us, reach out to us. And let us know what you need to help you through this AC selling season, because it's going to be a good one. And just there's so many new part numbers out there that are going to make it very advantageous for us all. So let me double check here before I leave, make sure there's no questions. Oh, that's a good one. So I got a good catch by my colleague here, Joe Donaggio. Just to make sure everybody knows that the all Napa virtual kits are under the ACK line code and should be looked up by job type in Napa Parts Pro at the store. Pick the year, make, model, and then click either AC Kit Basic or AC Kit Complete with condenser under the job type. Thank you for that, Joe. That actually is a big help. And so with that, I don't see any other questions that have come up. I want to say thank you to everybody for, again, taking some time out of your already busy day to spend it with me here. And again, happy AC selling, everybody. I think, again, it's going to be a good season, and we're here to help you in any way that we can. So with that, happy selling. Have a wonderful afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you here next month for another new topic. Goodbye, everybody.